So today we're going over the Gatco style guided sharpening system. So the first thing I'll get you to do is just read the instructions that come with your kit, whether it's the Gatco system or Lansky or DMT, they're all similar systems, but read the instructions first and then continue watching the video. Okay, so you've got your coarse sharpening rod, your medium, and then your ultra fine hone, and the clamp and jig guide, and some sharpening oil, which is basically just mineral oil. Before we get started here, I'll just make sure this knife is dull so you guys can see that the sharpener actually works. So I'll run the edge across the stone a few times. That's really, like butter knife dull now. I can not cut myself easily by pushing on the edge. The first two things you'll need are your clamp and your knife. Today I'm using one of our Lynx outdoor knives. So you're gonna set your knife, a quarter of an inch into the clamp or so. It's fairly centered, and then you're gonna tighten up your forward screw until it's lightly clamping the blade. Once that's done, you want to tighten up the rear screw, and you'll feel it really solidify and snug up. Make sure it's straight, and then give it a final tighten. And if you have to, adjust it so that it's straight. So the next thing is to set up your rods or your sharpening stones, and what you need to do is extend the rods, the guide rods, out of them, making sure to leave some of the rod inside the stone so that it's going to be solid. Do that to each one, and then next thing you're going to do is give them a light coat of the oil that is supplied with the kit. Okay, I usually just spread that around with my finger a little bit, and we'll leave the fine one for later. Alright, so the angles next to each of these slots are the angle per side. So if you sharpen at the 11-degree angle slot, that's going to be a total edge angle of 22 degrees. So what we recommend is you pick the most shallow angle first and check to see if it matches up with your edge well. In this case, I see that there is a bit of a gap right here, and I should go to the next steeper angle. So I'll go up to the 15-degree slot, and now I can see that it looks like it's matching up nicely. One thing I like to do before I start is coat the edge in Sharpie so that I know that my stone is removing material right to the edge of the knife. And the other thing that's quite handy to do is to, once you've clamped it, just draw around your clamp in Sharpie as well. And then do that on the other side as well. And what that does is, well, the edge Sharpie is to help you make sure the angle is right. And the Sharpie around the clamp is so that if you bump it and move the clamp on the knife, you can get it back to the right position. And also you'll know if you've bumped it, you'll see that it's moved. Okay, we've got the right angle and we've marked our edge with Sharpie. And so I'm going to put the rod in the angle slot we determined. First step is to start with the top of the stone right there near the heel, and then just stroke upwards with even pressure. And then start another stroke slightly further up the edge. And repeat. Just do that all the way up towards the tip. Okay, so after I've done a complete pass of the edge with multiple strokes, I like to check to make sure that Sharpie is being removed right to the cutting edge. If it is, that means I'm already quite close to being able to switch to the other side. So I see that the Sharpie's removed all along that bevel right to the cutting edge. And I'll just do another pass here to make sure it's good and clean. Alright, so let's switch over to the other side. You're going to repeat the same procedure in the right angle slot there. So another thing is you should always try to use as much of the length of the stone as possible. That makes sure that your stone is wearing evenly and your sharpening strokes are quite efficient that way. Once the edge is looking like it's ground well on both sides, I like to do the light test, which we describe in another video. Basically, you shine a light down on the edge from above and look for any reflection of light back off the edge. If the edge looks good, there's no light shining back off it, you're ready to move to the next grit. If you see a shiny spot or the whole edge is shiny, you should continue on that grit until you've removed the shininess. Great, so we're on to the medium grit, and all we're doing here is refining the edge further, taking out the coarse scratches and replacing them with finer scratches from this grit. So I'll start at the heel again, same thing, working my way up to the tip. And back down again. And back up again. Alright, and now we'll do the other side. And one thing that is quite important on both the medium and fine grits is you do a sort of a final light pass on each side at least once. So I'm back to the first side with the medium grit, and I just kind of do big strokes like that, like 2 or 3 to do the whole edge. Next side, and what that does is it just kind of knocks off any burrs that have formed and makes sure you're getting an accurate representation of where that edge is at before you move to the fine grit. So that's probably good there. With this one, I usually like to do a paper test. Get a piece of paper and cut through it to see how it's cutting. That's cutting through that quite nicely. It's not going to be, like a razor, but it should cut newspaper easily, like you're seeing there. So if it does that, you're ready to move on to the finest grit. We're on to the final grit here. Same angle slot again, and all the same stuff we did on the medium grit. A few passes down the edge on each side to refine it further, really polish it up. The more you do this, the more razor sharp it's going to get. It's kind of, it's a fairly fine grit, so you can really take it up to probably close to a mere polish with this, or you can just do it a little bit to refine the edge. Same thing on the other side. Both sides have been polished up now, and now I like to do that same final pass as we did on the medium grit. Both sides, and I would repeat that twice per side for this grit. Now, one more step, this can really help to get your edge razor sharp, is run your edge through a piece of wood across the grain a couple times, and that helps to knock off any really fine burrs that you've got going on. So after running it through the wood, I like to do a couple of those final passes again. Now it should be very sharp, and we'll do a cut test to confirm that. So once you think you're done on the fine grit, just do the paper test again and make sure that the knife's cutting well. As I said, the longer you work on the fine grit, the sharper it's going to get. So I could probably get this a little sharper, but as a working edge, it's very good. So you don't have to do any more work on it than that. Alright, so my lynx is nice and sharp again here. If you guys are having any problems getting good results on this system, two major stumbling blocks for people are using the correct angle and spending long enough on each grit. So make sure you're doing both of those correctly and you should have no problem getting good results on this. Thanks for watching.